So, in the year 2008, I did roughly 300 ecstasy pills. And this video is going to answer the questions both how and why did I do this? How does a person take 300 ecstasy pills in a year? I'm sure people have taken a lot more, but for me at least, and for pretty much anyone, I think 300 is a crazy number nonetheless. So how does one go about taking 300 ecstasy pills? And also, what kind of a toll does it take on the mind and the body to do this? Okay, so let's put everything into context, because I know on this channel I talk a lot about being a recovering heroin addict and all of my stories going through heroin addiction and everything. The ecstasy phase came before the heroin, so we're going further back in time. When I had never even done heroin when I went through all of this insanity with ecstasy. We're going to rewind to the year 2008. I'm an American, but I was living in Australia at the time. I got accepted into graduate school in Australia, so I was over there for a 3-semester program. And the first semester took place in the latter half of 2007, and then the second and third semesters were the calendar year of 2008. So I was in a long-distance relationship at the time. I was still young, and I still believed that those kind of things could work. How stupid of me. But nonetheless, I was in this long-distance relationship with a girl who I thought was the one. Again, young and stupid. And I had gone home between the first and the second semesters and spent all of the American winter with her. So I was home from like the end of November until March. No, actually, it was like the end of February when I went back. And it was only a couple weeks after I had... So this is really, let me rephrase this. This is really doing 300 ecstasy pills in about 9 months. Anyway, so I had gone back to my studies, and within a couple of weeks, going back in that March, the relationship essentially fell apart. She had met someone else and moved on, and I was dealing with that all alone in a foreign country. Now, I had known from the previous semester. I had gone to see a DJ named Paul Van Dyke. If anyone's ever heard of Paul Van Dyke, at the time he was one of the most famous trance DJs in the world. We had a couple friends and I had gone to see Paul Van Dyke, and we took ecstasy at that event. And furthermore, I knew from remembering the Paul Van Dyke event that the nightclub we were in to see him, there was a lot of open-air ecstasy dealing going on. I mean, we had gotten ecstasy before we went to the event, but I can't even count how many people approached me and tried to sell me ecstasy inside of the venue. And that's kind of a thing that, living in America, you don't have... at least I've never been to anywhere where there's such an open use of ecstasy in the night scene as there is or was. I don't know how it is now. It's been over 10 years. But in that 2007, 2008 era in big cities in Australia, there was a lot of open ecstasy use that seemed to be pretty much tolerated by the police, and a lot of the nightclubs seemed complicit in the dealing even. I'm not going to single anyone out, but yeah, it was just different because you don't see that in America. Like doing ecstasy at nightclubs in America, you got to be hush-hush and everything. You don't get, at least I've never been to a nightclub in America where 80% of the people in the nightclub were rolling and obviously rolling on ecstasy. But that's how it was in Australia. So here we go. So she and I had just broken up, and I was trying to deal with it. I was trying to drink it off. The alcohol wasn't working. So I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe I could go to that nightclub and try and score some ecstasy. That might do the trick. So I did just that. It was a Friday night, and I went to that same nightclub and found someone and bought some ecstasy off of this person and had a great time. And that's the thing about ecstasy is, like, if you haven't done it in a while and you do it and you only dose one time, you don't crash as hard. The hard crashes start to happen when you're doing it all the time, you're redosing, and you're combining it with other drugs, especially alcohol. And so yeah, in that year of 2008, the crashes just got progressively worse and worse and worse and worse. So how this nightclub operated is Friday night they would have a trance themed night, and then Saturday night they would have a house themed night. So I quickly fell into the habit of going on Friday nights to see the trance, because at the time I liked trance music more than house music. And Friday night was, 2 days until the next day in university, so I could, recover a little easier. And, it started off great. I'm a shy, awkward introvert, but anyone can make friends in a rave environment like that. And, I was distracted from, the trauma of the breakup, and it was all good and everything. I made a couple quick friends in the rave scene and had something to look forward to every week. And basically, I would start, it started with just, one pill, and then, you need 2 pills, and then you're getting 2 pills, and then you're getting a 2-pill redose. So basically, within a month of doing this, I was all the way up to doing, 5 pills in a night. You would go there, double drop pills at 9 o'clock, buy another dose at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then, go home when the club's closed at 5 a.m. And it was only after about a month I started going again on Saturday night. So I was going out Friday night doing 5 pills, and then I would go out Saturday night and do another 5 pills. So there I am doing, 10 pills a week of ecstasy. And, I probably did this over the course of 30, 40 weeks for the rest of that year. That's where I calculated the 300 pill number. And it obviously was extremely unsafe because I wasn't testing any of these pills. I was just buying whatever from dealers. Now, granted, there was a website. It's still in existence. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of it, but there's a website called pillreports.com. So what I would do is, before I went out on Friday night, I would sit down at Pill Reports and I would look at everything. They just list pills in your area, your geographical region, so you can get descriptions of pills, pictures, and then have people tested them. What are the suspected contents? Are they good pills? Are they bad pills? Are they safe pills? Are they adulterated pills? And I would just try and remember everything I possibly could from Pill Reports, and I would even take notes. But this was back before you had a mobile phone on you where you could just go to the website from the nightclub. This was before that. So I had to I would take notes, and because I started to get progressively more paranoid, I would take notes. I could read and write basic German at the time, so I would be writing notes about the various ecstasy pills in the area, but I'd write it all in German so that if I got stopped by a policeman who was looking through my pockets, they would just look like some random German that he wouldn't be able to translate instead of a list of ecstasy pill information. So I'd be trying to do it as safe as possible, and I did get good, consistent dealers who had consistent stuff. So I did a lot of I was getting mostly MDMA. Granted, you don't know how pure it is. A pill can test positive for MDMA, but you don't know whether it's because it has 20 milligrams or 200 milligrams. There was only a couple times that I got pills that just floored me and blew me away. But yeah, like that. And that's the thing too, man. It's I've done, for what it's worth, I've done dozens and dozens of different drugs at this point. The popular ones, the research chemicals and everything, nothing comes close to ecstasy. Ecstasy is, anything else is a distant second to ecstasy, to real good, high quality MDMA in terms of enjoyable, best feeling drug. Nothing compares to ecstasy. It is an experience that, man, it's freaking crazy that something can feel that good. So yeah, you just keep going back, hoping that you can get those, 10 out of 10 pills again. So side effects, what would happen? What started to happen? Something that I noticed really bad was sleep paralysis. I would start to get sleep paralysis every week in the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday days. I was getting horrible sleep paralysis. Anyone who's ever suffered sleep paralysis knows it's terrifying. It's one of the worst things ever, and it just started happening all the time. That was bad. I started to get paranoia and anxiety. Yeah, just little things like towards the end of the night, you'd be strung out on pills for 8 hours and you start to worry. Weird things would go through your mind. I'd always have to take a taxi home from the nightclub and I'd always be paranoid, being around the taxi driver. That sucked. Um, and, I lost a lot of weight. I was just basically a skeleton at the time. Because, yeah, like it numbs your appetite. Um, a lot of money spent, obviously. 300 ecstasy pills, at that point in Australian dollars, it was like $20 or $30 a pill back then. So I probably spent like $6,000-8,000 in that year on ecstasy. And looking back, it's like, dude, you were in a foreign country and you could have spent all that money traveling around a foreign country and everything, really experiencing it. But no, you blew it all on drugs. It's just, it's whatever. But yeah, a lot of money spent. I did end up graduating that year, but just barely. Just barely. I got they don't have an ABC scale over there. They have a 1 through 7, 7 being the highest grade. I ended up getting and I obviously, as a exchange student, I had to pass. It was no second chances. And I think it was 4 passed and 3 failed. And I was taking this really hard course the second semester of 2008. And this whole year, I'm coasting by on book smarts. I'm not putting anywhere near the effort that I should have put into school. And that's another huge regret because I look back and it's yeah, I coasted it through on book smarts and got the degree, but man, I just, you wonder where you could have gone if I was not partying all of the freaking time. And yeah, I was in the nightclubs on the weekends, but during the weeks, I was in bars and everything. I put so little effort into school. And it just sucks because man, you just wonder if I would have put everything, you're so young. I feel now, that I'm in my 30s, it's if I had the chance to go back to school, and not have to pay for a degree, someone was just I'm going to pay for you to go back to school for, I would be studying every night and I would be so enthusiastic and everything. It's, the whole, when you're young and especially when you're like me and you grew up so sheltered, all you want to do is party. Anyway, other side effects, you build up a lot of awkward memory trauma. I talk about this over and over with ecstasy. Ecstasy just makes you so loose and outgoing. You do a bunch of stupid, embarrassing things under the influence of ecstasy, and then you feel embarrassed and ashamed and regretful about it all. So the question of there's a lot of stuff out there that says ecstasy, fries your brain, it causes permanent anxiety and all of that stuff. I don't feel any of that. Obviously I got out of that year pretty unscathed, all things considered. It's not it's not being addicted to opiates or something where you have to deal with this post-acute withdrawal syndrome that lasts months and months and months. I stopped taking ecstasy and I was back to normal in a couple of weeks. I mean, it wasn't there was this residual horrible anxiety, but there was a residual horrible awkward memory trauma that stuff still haunts me to this day. I still, even just making this video, I get elevated physical anxiety because I start to think about all the awkward things that I did under the influence of ecstasy. So it is it's still, there is anxiety. It's just it's indirect anxiety by way of this awkward memory trauma, if that makes sense. Any other side effects? And yeah, just having to live a double life, that sucks, Nobody I was going to university with had any clue I was doing this. My roommates at the time had no clue I was doing this. It was a legitimate, like a double life. And back then I thought it was romantic and everything to be living this double life. But yeah, doing that just adds to your anxiety and everything. Let's see what else. Have I taken ecstasy since that year? Yes, I have. Probably maybe 5 times, and those would have been those 5 times would have taken place between 2010 and 2012. I haven't taken ecstasy I took methadone in 2013. See my methadone video for if you don't know what methadone is. But I haven't taken actual MDMA since I think 2011 would be the last time I took it. It's one of those things that, like, I talk about, going on like 3.5 years now from heroin, more than that for benzos, couple of years for alcohol, and really just like looking forward, like the only things I'm open to anymore would be weed and psychedelics. Everything else is off limits. Ecstasy is the one that just messes with you. It's the one that I still find myself thinking of ways that I could possibly justify doing ecstasy one more time in my life. I'm content not doing heroin. I'm content not doing any, benzos or coke or anything like that. But I still think and contemplate, situations and settings where I would do ecstasy again, because it just feels that freaking good and you don't forget it and you crave it. Let's see, what else? Adulterated pills. What were the typical adulterated drugs that would be sold as ecstasy back then? Well, there was a class of drugs called piperazines. I don't know if anyone knows what piperazines would be. Like examples would be like BZP, MCPP, TFMPP. Those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head. And that's really what you would get a lot of your pills spiked with, would be these piperazines. And some of them sucked. Some of them would keep you up way too long. And some of the pills would have meth in them, but that didn't happen that often. But the thing with the piperazines, though, is like you start to get into all of the chemistry, where it's like you get a pill at the beginning of the night that has some piperazine in it, and the piperazine is like a antagonist at some receptor site that the MDMA is an agonist for, and the binding affinity of the antagonism is stronger. You can take one of these piperazines when you get to the nightclub, and you can sabotage getting actual MDMA later in the night. So like it was just a lot of weird interactions, I'm sure, happened within my mind and body from all of those drugs. It was crazy to have done that, but I don't, I think that, I mean, I knew a lot of people who took comparable, I mean, there were, in that scene in Australia at that time, like, there were hundreds of people. I mean, not that I knew personally, but like you would see and recognize the same core group of people that went out raving every weekend like that. There had to be hundreds and hundreds of us in that city at the time that were doing just as many ecstasy pills. And I don't think that, I don't think it really gave me any long-term damage or whatever. And I can kind of look at it as, now as like silly things that I did in my youth. But again, like, I wish I could have kept it to a couple times, not every freaking weekend.